have you been growing your ability to think and expand it?
Well, thank you for thinking that I think. We'll just start with that. I think for me, and this is just for me, curiosity has been one of the best attributes that I've found that I can develop in my life. Not just taking at face value what's presented to me. How did you come to that conclusion? What's the evidence that actually supports what you're saying here? And in today's politically charged environment where you've got fake news going, I mean, you got all this stuff that whatever people are, trumpeting out there. Where's the validation? Critical thinking. I think critical thinking, it's not taught in schools anymore. It used to be taught, in my experience. I mean, certainly when I was going to school, I had to actually show my work, if you will. Yeah. How'd you come up with that answer? Show your work. So there was evidence-based questions that were part of my upbringing. Starting with my parents. How did you come to that conclusion? You're upset about something. Why do you think that's what it is? And that would stop me. I was going, well, because it's not an answer. What's the evidence you're using to support your upset? Oh, I don't have any. I'm just upset. Okay, well then let's back up the truck and start all over again. So the idea of critical thinking, just being curious. What's the source? And this goes. I think honestly, it goes hand in hand with emotional intelligence. Self-awareness is the foundation of emotional intelligence, and this idea of awareness. What's the source of my emotional experience today? What's the source of this behavior that I feel compelled to do? What's the source of it? I mean, just that question, what's the source of this? It gives me pause. Viktor Frankl,
yes,
talked about between stimulus and reaction, there's a space. In that space, if you curate it well, you can make a different choice. In that space, you have to think before you behave, before you act. In that space, think. And then you'll know what to do next.
Beautiful, beautiful. And if people can have that space for a little longer, for them to think, you see how beautiful the world would be, right? Would become, yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
I promised my wife to ask the last question. It's going to be a bizarre question, in case it's not related to this conversation at all. But if you had a chance to travel time and to meet you at the age of 18, all right? And you have a message to talk to your own self at 18 years old. Okay. So what would this 75 years old Blaine talk to the 18 years old Blaine? What message?
Take more risks.
Take more risks.
Yeah, take more risks. Yeah, take action faster. Those two things, take action faster and take more risks.
How can I know myself? What practice can I do to make it happen?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways. I'll share the long term and then some easy things. So the long term is obviously like take a lot of assessments, personality assessments, work style assessments, career style assessments. I have taken so many assessments to learn about myself, right? Go to therapy, go to coaching, just ask feedback from other people in your life. What do you think I'm good at? What do you think are my greatest strengths? What do you think I'm most challenged by? You can ask a lot of people in your life that same question to gather some data, right? Pay attention when people do give you feedback, including really positive feedback that you dismiss. So if somebody says, wow, you're so good at that, and you're like, it's easy, it's no big deal, that's when you should pay attention, because you are not realizing that there's something special about you that other people see in you, that it comes so easily and so naturally that it's part of your core. And that is where you should pay attention as much as when they tell you something they don't like about you, or so that's the long term, like self-development. I do have one tool. I'm putting it in my book, but it's also free and available on my website. It's called the yes/no grid, and I'll just describe how to do it. So you don't actually have to go to the website, but if you're interested, it's on my website under free resources at gotowerscope.com. What I did for myself is I had maybe 3 or 4 years ago realized that I had overcommitted to all of these things that was not bringing me any happiness. And I was regretting every time. I was 3 months in, 4 months in, regretting taking on these seemingly wonderful opportunities. And I'm thinking, now I've overloaded myself with things that make me unhappy. And now it's even harder to extract myself. So this is not a good pattern for me. See if I can do something different. So I started tracking. It's like a 2x2 grid. Yes, no, right? And did I say yes to this, or did I say no to this? And was I happy about the decision afterwards, or what did I regret the decision afterwards? And I just started like writing notes for myself on my whiteboard, which is like right up here next to me, so that it was in front of me every time somebody invited me to do something. So I could always look back and remind myself what I did. And I started tracking, when you have these 3 set of circumstances, every time those 3 things are there and you said yes, you regretted it. So now every time somebody's in front of you and they offer and you ask a bunch of questions and it meets those 3, you better say no, Mira, because you weren't happy before, so you better say no. And what it also helped me do is say no more easily, because I had a reason for it. It's so much easier to say, thank you so much for offering this. What I have learned over time, as I've reflected, is that these kind of opportunities that have this or this or this actually don't make me feel good after I say yes. And I don't want to commit to something and then regret it. And then you feel badly that, I actually need to remove myself after I made that commitment. It would be bad for me. It would be bad for you, And so they completely understood what I was talking about, but I had examples and a great way to explain to people why I was making the decision. So that helped me gain a lot of wisdom about myself, just tracking my decision making and where it was coming from.
What is that called? Yes, no, what?
The yes/no grid, because it's like a 2x2
yes, no grid. So it's on your website.
Yeah. You just go under free resources, and it's one of the things that you can download to try it out for yourself.
So why over the past 50 years, not a lot of people talks about the guardrails in terms of wisdom?
Yeah, people are so enthusiastic about success, which they too often define as just making a lot of money, having a lot of power, enjoying a lot of status, maybe getting famous. They just want to know, what should I do? What should I do? Okay, do this, do this, do this, do this. But nobody is issuing warnings. Be careful not to do that. Be careful to stay away from this. And so we see a lot of people whose very success turns into disaster, catastrophe. They become famous, they become rich, and then they become drug addicted, or they spend all their money and all of a sudden they're broken in debt for millions of dollars. They have a problem they didn't have before their great success. So we need the cautionary wisdom as well as the positive guidance. We need those guardrails. We need those warnings that the wise people have always understood where the trouble is in life, where the dangers are. We need to listen to that as well. And sometimes, this is interesting to me, sometimes we get those warnings in great literature, in epic poems, in novels, in plays, in short stories. I've found, for example, Mary Shelley, who was a a young novelist in England in the 1800s. When she was a teenager, she was probably 16 to 18 years old. She wrote a book called Frankenstein, a very famous novel about a very smart man named Victor Frankenstein, who set it as his goal. He wanted to learn enough science so he could create a thinking, feeling being out of just basic parts. He could create something like a human being, and he would be praised forever. He would be famous forever. And in fact, the being would look at him as a god. And so he set his goal. He did everything the guidance wisdom tells you to do. Do this, set a goal, be confident, focus your concentration on what it takes, be consistent in your pursuit of the goal. He did all those things, and he created a monster he let loose into the world, a monster he couldn't control, and who killed the people that meant the most to him. Now that's a cautionary tale, a great metaphor for success in many people's lives who follow the guidance but don't pay attention to the guardrails. Victor Frankenstein's problem was his motivation was selfish. His motivation was self-aggrandizing grandiosity. He wanted to be famous. He wanted to be great. He wanted to be worshipped. He had no thought about the good of others, the common good. And so because he attained his goal, he unleashed into the world a monster he couldn't control. Well, boy, that's a great metaphor for a lot of people's success in the world today. It's not answerable to the guardrails that the wise people have given us. So I tell people, read great fiction, read books like Frankenstein, read an epic poem like Beowulf, which was an Anglo-Saxon epic about a great warrior who, as he grew older, didn't change the way he did things. And he just wanted to, just like Frankenstein, he wanted to be famous. He wanted to do things by himself so he would get all the praise. But that he set himself up for his own demise, his own death because of that. We have great cautionary literature throughout history. I advise people to read it. In fact, one of my new books is going to be exactly on that.
Oh, really? What's the book's name?
It's called The Frankenstein Factor, and it's subtitled Monster Success and Massive Failure.
Monster Success and Massive Failure. I'll look for it. So besides the guardrails is lacking in our life, what else do you think is a major impact on us to be able to be aging with wisdom, though?
Yeah, we need to recover and rediscover the importance of talking to older people and listening. Young people nowadays think they need to listen to each other, and that's important, but it's just as important to listen to people who are older and who are younger. When people in their 20s and 30s are not around children and they're not around older people, they only have a very small view of what life is about. Being with children can keep wonder and curiosity and awe alive in their lives, because children are amazed by everything. They're curious about everything. And a lot of people in their 20s and 30s and 40s, they lose that curiosity. But if they could be around more children, they would be reminded of the importance of curiosity in life. And then they're not around older people, or when they are, they just don't listen. They don't pay attention. Oh, you lived in another time. It's modern times now. I don't need to listen to that. But if they could listen to the wisdom of their elders, they would get their bearings much better, and they would be given great guidance and great guardrails, because the older people who have become wiser have seen the things that they have not yet experienced and can give them great advice about what may be ahead on the road. Plato actually said, we need to consult the wisdom of people who have been down this road of life before us, who have seen the opportunities and the obstacles that may lie ahead. And they have learned sometimes the hard way about how to deal with these things properly. We can avoid all the pain and suffering, or much of it, that they had to go through if we will just listen and learn.